Okay, one more day, I think, of getting this done. And the Drawing Critical Role video series. I have a series of videos because this is gigantic and has been like consuming my life for a couple of weeks now. I had to take a 2-day off period because of wildfire smoke. The smoke was so bad, our levels around here were up above 200 for over 24 hours. And so we were sealed up in the house with all of the door jambs covered and stuff. It was like we were not going out at all in any way, shape, or form. And so nothing got done on this for a couple of days, but I'm back at it. I'm gonna try and finish it up today. That's the plan. So thanks for joining me. I hope you've been able to watch all of these, and that would be amazing if you sat and watched through them all, because you're looking at, that's like half a day's worth of watching. It's like easily 12 to 14 hours. At least 14 by the time today is done. Yeah, it's been a fun process to do, and I'm gonna bring it with me to Rose City Comic Con. So if you see me, stop me. I'll be carrying like the big sketchbook that this is in, and you can check it out. And so here we go. We're gonna get on the last couple of characters here. I'm looking forward to Grog. Grog is just, I think Grog may be one of my favorites. He's amazing. I still want to work top to bottom, so it'll be a little bit before I get to him. Yeah, I have a friend from when I was younger. Back in Florida, who every time I see Grog on the Vox Machina cartoon series, it kind of reminds me of him. At least my memory of him at that age has changed quite a bit, I'm sure, in the interim years. But going back to when I lived in Florida, I can't help but think of him when I see some of Grog's shenanigans. been going on in the world since we last spoke, other than the wildfire issues? And there have been a few local things like that, like really close by here. A lot of the smoke that we were getting was from over the mountains on the other side of Washington. Smoke creeps up over the mountains and gets to us. But there was a couple here as close as Lakewood, which is ironically where I go for my asthma treatment. So hopefully none of my friends were too terribly displaced by all of that. I know a couple of people that I know were under evacuation order, and that's crazy just to think that it got that close to us. But meanwhile, Hawaii has been on fire for a while. I don't know how much of that is contained at this point, but a whole lot of folks that I know had Maui things going on that had to be either cut short or canceled because of the fires going on down there. And that's a nightmare, the level of damage that has happened. And in the meantime, Maui's on fire. California had a hurricane in Southern California. Category 4 hurricane is creeping up the Baja Peninsula towards LA, where my Legacy of Fools friends are all out doing their streaming. And they're all okay. There was some flooding issues that they had to deal with, but it seems like they're managing it okay, and it was only a tropical storm, I guess, by the time it hit Los Angeles, which was very lucky for them, because forecasts had it looking much worse than that for a while. And I was glad to hear that they dodged the worst case scenario situation. These days, worst case scenario situations are just to be expected. It's like another day at the park. But yeah, they're all right. And other than being ill and not being able to stream this week, which is unfortunate, a couple of the cast members came up sick and they needed to cancel their stream on Saturday, and the one that was scheduled for tonight. And we're gonna miss them. But you can check them out and go to Legacy of Fools on Twitch, and they stream most Tuesday nights, generally every Tuesday night, unless something is extenuating circumstances like tonight, where there are cast members who are quite ill and they cannot get together for a D&D game. But it's a lot of fun. These people are all very classically, professionally trained Hollywood actors who are hysterical to watch. And I highly recommend it. If you like Critical Role, and if you're here watching this, I gotta assume you either like Critical Role, or you really just like watching people draw at actual speed, which is quite a bit slower than a lot of the YouTube drawing things that you see these days, because people like to speed up their process to make it look miraculous. I like to show what it really takes in a world that's suffused with instant gratification. Sometimes it's good to know that to do these actual things takes actual time. And it's worthy actual time. It's time well spent. I feel like it is. And if you're here looking at what I'm doing and listening, you probably feel like it too, which I really appreciate. these things going on all over the world right now. And one of the things you're not hearing a whole lot about these days is global warming deniers, climate change deniers, because they're getting shut up by the fact that we're watching it happen in real time before our eyes. There's so many people who used to be in the whole it's all cycles and it's just this kind of thing happens every whatever number of years bullshit. It's proving to be not at all true, and even laughably the exact opposite of what these deniers have been pushing all these years. There's people who are like on this fence of let's just ignore reality and maybe it'll go away, and it's so incredibly irresponsible to close your eyes to what's actually happening in the world and hope that it just goes away and doesn't bother you. I'd love to think that nobody that would be watching what I'm doing would possibly fall under that heading, and I'm probably right about that, I would imagine. But anyone who's kind of still thinking all of this could be a hoax still, or it could be a plot by some, I don't know, what is it, the deep state thing, or some other crazy made up conspiracy that people are actually conspiring to make your lives less fun by saying that the world is getting screwed up by your actions. That's mental. Just the idea that anyone can truly believe that these days. I mean, yeah, there are definitely people working quite diligently to make your life less fun, but they usually do it by making money off of you somehow. Making you pay higher and higher bills every month. Yeah, those people are definitely diligently working to make your life less fun. But people who are saying that the world is getting damaged by the actions of irresponsibility, mostly corporate irresponsibility too. These climate change activists aren't saying, how dare you turn your lights on in your house because the world is getting messed up. What they're saying is corporate overpolluters are destroying the planet, and they're not trying to make your life less fun. They're trying to hold big businesses responsible for their damage and for their actions and their gross negligence. And again, this falls into that whole supporting those who work against your best interests I discussed on my last drawing session. If you are arguing against people who are trying to get out the facts that climate change is real, then you're really arguing for people who are trying to or willing to destroy your world, destroy the world that your kids are going to be growing up in, or maybe not growing up in, because honestly, the planet may not be capable of sustaining human life by the time your children's children are growing up. At the rate that we're going and we're allowing, and there's like this group of naysayers and climate change deniers are literally doing the job of the corporation's negligence for them. And it's just stupid. It's just, I don't get how people are capable of that level of ignorance. In this day and age, we're supposed to be an intelligent species. And I'm watching folks in red baseball caps being very not good proof of that. In other current news, and some part of the reason I'm doing the current news kinds of things while I'm drawing, other than just having something to just talk about and chat while I'm drawing, is looking back at this years from now. I like to be able to see what was going on in the world while I was doing this. Yeah, I like him. Cool. So about the Maui wildfires, one of my favorite charities, one that I've given a fair bit of money to in the past couple of years, World Central Kitchen is setting up in Maui to feed people who have been displaced, and they did a lot of work in Ukraine, are still, I believe, doing a lot of work in Ukraine or in the surrounding countries of Ukraine, helping people who have been displaced from their country because of the Russian attack over there. They're in Maui now too, doing the same sort of thing. So if you're looking for a way to make a difference, to help with the situations that are going on right now, World Central Kitchen, WCK, I believe, WCK.org. But if you Google World Central Kitchen, it comes right up. Did for me. They are a fantastic organization that seems to be very responsible about the way money that's donated gets used. I've seen real good things about that, and I tend to believe in them. Just the fact that they're willing to share videos of their work. You know, they're making giant, like wok-looking things, like enormous woks, full of meals for all of these people, and you see it happening on the videos that they share. Makes me feel good about where the money is going that I'm sending out there. So when I have a little extra to spare every once in a while, and sometimes I'll do a piece that I auction off for a charity, that is generally the charity that I'm sending the money to, whoever wins the bid on it. And you can know that they are where that piece, that amount of pledge that you've sent in ends up going. Also been getting ready, getting started on a piece for PhilCon, which is going to be happening in November. PhilCon is a Philadelphia convention. It happens in the border city to Philadelphia, which is actually Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's right on the edge of Philadelphia, in November, and it's a pretty gigantic show. Honestly, I get the impression they're a big deal. Kind of on the level of NorwestCon. They had a kind of a smaller show last year because of COVID, but I think they're gearing up to do a much bigger one again this year. Though they are still requiring proof of vaccination and encouraging people to wear masks, stuff like that, which I approve of. I'm all about safety first, especially since I know some folks that recently have come down with some COVID things, like really recently, like are currently going through it. And so I don't know if we've got a new strain. I have not been following as much COVID news as I had been for a while there. I spent a couple of years really keeping tight looks on what's going on in the world of COVID disease management. And I've let that slide a little bit because life has been taking a priority to just certain things needing to get done, as it does from time to time. So, I don't know if there's a new variant that's got much stronger symptoms. Folks I know that have it seem to not be well at all. They're recovering, but they had a rough bout. So, the one that had been prevalent for a while there, that was often symptom-free and people didn't know they had it until they were hospitalized for something else and got tested and found out they had COVID also. Yeah, it's not that easy anymore. There are a few folks that are coming up with significant symptoms when they get this one. I'm glad I don't have the window open today because the street racers are out in force and seem to be on my road. And nobody needs that in their video. I'm just about ready for Grog, yay. I'm very impressed with this sculpture. How very what's actually there on the sculpt is plenty fabric looking. And I don't know if that's the sculpt or the paint, or I imagine it's a combination of both. The paint job that the Sideshow does on these things is just insanely good. I tell you, if I had an incredible amount of liquid, unaccounted for assets that I could spend on fun things, I would have a huge collection of Sideshow sculpts, because they're just incredible. I can stare at them for hours. I have one for sure that is, I think, is it Sideshow or is it More? It might be More, M-O-R-E. Don't know if that's a Sideshow one or not, but I have this one that I picked up at Emerald City Comic Con a few years back that is kind of a splurge, but it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous piece. I got a chance to talk to the sculptor. He was there at the show, and you talk to these guys and you just gotta buy their work afterwards, because it's just so impressive what they can do. Nowadays, it's probably a little bit faster because of the fact that a lot of these things can be sculpted in digital 3D modeling programs, like I've done with the characters from Legacy of Fools, and for the characters in our home game. Some of those can be seen on some of my YouTube videos of like portfolio stuff. Artist that I spoke to back in that Emerald City Comic Con day, he was making these things for, I believe it was Sideshow, I'm not positive, but he was just doing it with Sculpey. He was throwing Sculpey at a base skeleton. It's like a wire, a heavy steel wire skeleton that they would start him with, and it's like he would sculpt the full skeleton, everything like the pelvis and rib cage and all of that on top of the wire, and then start laying muscles down on top of that, and it's this huge process of putting down the muscle structure and then skinning the top of the muscles with this like very thin overlay, and then adding the veins and everything underneath that, and then clothing on top of that, and the layering it all together. Just complex stuff, very complex stuff. But I had all the respect in the world for the way he was doing it. He really, the way he explained it to me, actually influenced how I draw people a lot. And now doing some 3D sculpture in the computer, because my hands are just not made for throwing clay. I've tried to do some clay work. I've got a thing of Super Sculpey over here that I've tried to do things with over the years, and it's not for me. It's just never going to work right. I do not have the hands for sculpting. The oils or something in the clay just mess me up really bad. But 3D modeling in the computer, I love that stuff. I would literally love to just do that for a living. Because I feel like every time I do one of these things, I'm learning more and more about anatomical structure and texturing and all of that. Just yeah, I could be in my happy place just doing sculpting like that for like sideshow or something. It'd be good. Something unique to bring to the table, though. Because most of what I do, I've literally learned from like YouTube videos. There's a couple, Michael Pavlovich, I believe, or Pavlovich. I can't think of how he pronounces his name. A couple of these 3D artists that I've been watching their videos for a few years now, and have learned a ton of stuff from them, but by no means would I be at their level doing something for one of the big companies, I don't think, at least right now, because everything I know how to do pretty much learned from them. And while I've been using ZBrush for a couple of years now, my knowledge of the ZBrush interface is still pretty limited compared to some of these video people that I watch. They're always like adjusting how their menus are laid out and things for different kinds of work. I'm like, my menus don't change. I don't ever move around. What I'm using is just the default menus. And ZBrush's default menus are pretty good. I don't know what the need is to lay it out differently, because some folks find having different tools available at their fingertips is helpful. I don't really have much of a problem going into the menu starts and then searching for the thing that I need, because I kind of know where they're going to be. Having it as a shortcut doesn't seem necessary to me, but I can totally understand why some folks would want it like that. The faster you do something, the better. And if you're going to do it a lot, you gotta get quick at it. I don't like that with Photoshop. Like, I totally put things in my own places in Photoshop, and when Photoshop went down on me and my whole computer just kind of crashed out, and I had to reload everything, one of the first things I did was try and get Photoshop back to normal. Normal for me. It still doesn't quite feel right. I've got some things that I've got to adjust on there still, but yeah, I mean, I get wanting customized interfaces and stuff. Just haven't needed it for ZBrush yet. Again, a lot of what I do in Photoshop is hotkeys, and the hotkeys are standard. They haven't changed at all, so that at least wasn't hard to do at all. face has so much more three-dimensional depth to it than a normal human face would, which is fascinating. Whoever sculpted this really got into the idea that this half-giant would not be a normal human bigger. There's a lot of really interesting shape changes that were made, taking in his inhuman nature quite seriously. Sorry, I got quiet again. I got junk going through my head that I just was like, what am I going to talk about next? And my head started filling up with things that I don't know that would be really good to have on this stream. Like contract stuff and AI stuff and just crap. So I stopped talking, and I'm sorry, didn't mean to do that to all of you. I also got real focused on the shapes in here. There's so many things happening that are not normal human anatomy. I'm like, okay, what am I going to keep? What am I going to discard? And I'm finding I'm wanting to keep most of the non-human stuff because it's intentional. It's not just because it's a sculpture. It's like, it's because he's a half giant. So, you know, these choices that were made make sense in the inhuman nature of the character to just go with it. So I kind of am. But because of that, I can't autopilot through any of it. It's all very requiring of that focus and level of attention to every individual shape to make sure everything ends up right where it needs to be. Also thinking about how I've got a friend who's got a beard a lot like this. I can kind of just think of his beard and go with it. Whenever we get into hair, that's where I'm going to vary from the sculpture quite a ways, because we want the hair to look like fibers and not plastic, not chunky. But when you're doing a mass-produced sculpture, you can't really plan for every hair bit, because it'll never pull from the cast or print on the 3D printer correctly, or however these are being manufactured. I think they're still, I get the impression that they're still working with molds and doing casting. Even if they're casting from a printed master copy. Sorry, my back is crunchy today and I'm having to constantly stretch it back out. So I needed to stop a few times in the process of this just to deal with back stretching, because, you know, that age. I forgot to check on what characters' names were before I came out here. I'm not good at character names. It's one of my weaknesses for sure, is remembering the names of people, anything really. Like in real life, in fiction, whatever. You get too many character names and I start focusing on like 5 or 6 of them and the rest of them will get missed. So, like Grog, I remember, because Grog is awesome. And simple, easy to recall. But then some of the others here, I'm just like, well, that was Vax, right? And then I don't remember who he is. It's driving me nuts. I should know. No, it's not gonna come to me. And I can't look it up because my phone is doing the video. So, when I get this ready to upload to YouTube, I always check out what the names are so I can add them to the title cards and stuff. I'll know it then. Need a lot more pencil lead for this because it's pretty dark here. Sorry about that. I just noticed it's creeping up on my work area here. It's funny, my brain kind of shuts out stuff like that, so I don't often notice it until it's already in the zone I'm working on, and probably looks just plain terrible on the video. I'm out here later in the day than I had been before because it's really nice out today. It's not crazy hot. It's like 70-ish. In the studio, also about 70, which is great for working on something like this. And I wasn't in a hurry to get started like I have been on other days because I knew the weather was going to cooperate with me today. So I had a little freedom to just start whenever. Grog. So groggy. Alright. Oh, that's what it is. The sun came out from behind the clouds, made a big sunlight spot, and now it's dipped back down, and I don't have any bright spots. It just snuck up on me there for a little bit. Seems like it's all better now. I imagine that'll probably play messy havoc with the video level though. So here's a question. Let's see who wants to weigh in on this. This could be a charged subject though, so I'm going to ask this with a grain of please answer with care if you're going to get into the comments and make some discussion about it. Travis's characters in the first 2 campaigns for sure at least, and then not so much in campaign 3, but definitely for the first 2 were non-white characters, and there was some conversation among some of the players that I've talked to lately about what is appropriate to play when you are not a POC in a D&D group, particularly on a streaming group. Like, is it okay to be a darker skinned character when you are yourself a white player? Or is that appropriation? And you know, I've got a couple of people who watch these who are POC. I personally am. And I have never actually had any difficulty with it. As far as who wants to play what in D&D, and all of the years that I've played, heck, I can't think of how many times I've had players at the table who were white playing a drow. It's pretty common. So it never dawned on me to consider, like, is that an appropriation thing, or does it matter how you play them culturally? Does it matter what your like, if your character has dreads, for example, is that worse than if they're dark-skinned? Or if the character is light-skinned with dreads, is that somehow worse? Or dark-skinned with dreads and the player is light-skinned? At my table, it's never come up, like, as even a question of should we or shouldn't we be. No, just do whatever you want at my table when I'm DMing. Now that I've been able to be a player more often, even in groups where we have professional DMs, it's never been a problem to play whatever you want to play as your character, because you are taking on a persona that is understood to be not you. And it's a persona that you're interested in exploring, so I would imagine if you're interested in exploring a different race or experience like that everyone is generally cool with and understanding of the idea that that is a role-playing choice in-game and not something you're trying to portray yourself as in the real world. But the question becomes, if you become associated with the character that you play because you're on a streaming thing that gets a million views or whatever, when does that become crossing the line? Is it okay because it's not human? Is it okay because in this world those cultural differences don't exist? Is it not okay? Is it something that you considered always offensive or upsetting, in some way problematic? Is it diminishing the experience of people who have different skin colors in the real world by playing things in a fantasy world that don't go through the same difficulties? Or is it great to embrace the differences? That's also fine if you want to say that's the answer. But, like, I honestly kind of want to know what other people's thoughts are on this, because personally, I love the idea of people of any color being able to play people of any other color, or their own, or whatever, because the idea is we're living in a optimized and de-optimized world in this game that we play, where the racial differences are actually different races, not different, like, colors, but you're talking about an entirely other species. In a world where there's elves, why does it matter if your skin is dark or medium or light or whatever? It just doesn't, because there's also elves and they're way different. And so prejudices or stereotypes or whatever wouldn't exist in that world in the same way, or maybe they would, because regardless of the fact that there's elves, you might have political rivals among the same species, and so you're not taking into account any other species as much of a threat or a thing to get along with less, because you've already got problems with the folks across the lake from you, or what have you. There's a lot of different ways this can go, because you're adding the idea that humans aren't alone in the number of sentient, intelligent species that dot the landscape, that are something to contend with. I mean, you've got a world where there's half giants and orcs and goblins, and all of these things are, either competitors for resources or land, or just plain other, and sometimes even dangerous by nature of what they are. And the more I talk about this, the more I realize there's ingrained prejudices in everything. And one of the things D&D allows is for you to break out of that by saying, just because a goblin is supposedly a dangerous other species, other thing that I guess has to be contended with in the spectrum of managing one's existence, doesn't mean that you don't have characters like Not. people like Nott, who are amazing, wonderful examples of humanoids that break all stereotypes and assumptions about a species. And so even in D&D, we get this ability to have very politically, socially charged moments which have analogies to the real world in pretty dramatic ways. I mean, I kind of think that's got to be one of the reasons why this game tends to attract very open-minded people. But you get all sides playing D&D. You have your very open-minded players, but then you also have players who see what's different from them and immediately start swinging. And I've worked with both of those. These days it tends to be more open-minded folks, but having been in a few public games the past couple of years, you definitely get both. There have been some games where, despite what the DM had intended a game to go like, you have players that come in that are not at all interested in discussing anything with those who may be in opposition to them. It's just start swinging. It's swinging time. And that is, unfortunately, just the nature of people, I suppose, that no matter how available a context for discussion becomes, impression over 50 years, and didn't think there was any reason that it needed to give this thing to this group of whippersnappers that came walking into its cave. Anyhow, it didn't look like there was going to be any discussion. And predictably, we started swinging. We did technically wait for it to make the first move. But it was kind of a foregone conclusion that there was going to be a fight. And some of the players, I think, were a little disappointed in that. There was no way we were actually going to get to discuss the situation with this dragon. That it was gonna eat us for dinner. Now, admittedly, it looks like it had been many years since the dragon had eaten anybody for dinner. We've been stuck in that cave for so long, and when we come down there and offer it a meal by being its central focus, I think it's probably on us that it decided to attack first, because it just wasn't interested in discussing things, and it's just like, I'm hungry and you come to my house. And you're what I eat. Yeah, I think there were some players that really wanted to make a deal. We didn't have anywhere near enough to bargain with to make a deal. But there was this whole idea in their head that maybe a deal was there to be made. And, no, not today. No, it didn't happen. Things about this kind of a shader is you can have some fairly rough edges, and it'll clean them up pretty nicely. I do have a few fairly rough edges in some of these. Places where black against black isn't going super smooth. And there's a lot of that down in this shadow area on Grog. I can get in here with this Tortillon blender. It's just a little gray stump. And really get all of that black area nice and smooth. Always got to remember, though, to switch it to the dark side. Embrace the dark side. Oh, that's the other thing going on this week. Ahsoka is going to be starting in a few days. on Disney Plus. And I bet there's a lot of crossover between Critical Role fans and Ahsoka Tano fans. Something tells me that's probably pretty common. I'm definitely in that group. I'm in the crossover group, for sure. I love that character since I saw the first episode of Clone Wars. Anakin had an apprentice, and she's just tough as nails. That's fantastic. And the development that Dave Filoni did to that character is so great. But I also have a Facebook friend who I believe does the costuming for the Ahsoka series. She did all the Mandalorian stuff. Shauna Tripsic, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. Never met her in person, but we're friends on Facebook. And she seems like an amazing human being. And she completely gets where she is in her career as far as, like, I don't think she understands how well respected she is by the general community of fans, and how kind of she's become this treasure to a lot of us that she doesn't quite realize she's the star in places where she goes. There was a moment, apparently, she took a Hollywood bus tour a week or so ago, and she had a little bit of time to kill in Hollywood. She was there for work and got an ovation by the people on the bus after she told the bus driver what she does, and he announced it to the general audience, and they were all kind of freaking out that this person was on their bus. And I kind of get that. She doesn't realize it, I think, or she's just maybe starting to realize the level of glory, basically, that she has achieved in her career. But I've been following her career since, oh my goodness, it's been probably close to 20 years, when she was the costume designer on Firefly. Firefly had amazing costumes, and so many people I know have cosplayed those characters. And that's all her fault, because she made iconic looks for these people that everyone is dying to duplicate, which is great. But she has just started to get an idea of her level of awesomeness. It's kind of nice to see people that you know that are like understanding that now, finally, after all this time. All right, now it's just a matter of getting in here and detailing stuff up. Smoothing things out and detailing things up. A lot of smoothing out to do that I'm looking at here. There's so many places where the black has some roughness, and going in and looking at it after being away from those areas for a couple of weeks. Yeah, we need to polish some things just a little bit. And sharpen up some darkness in some places. They've got some characters here that don't have the depth of darkness that they should have in some of their features. Sam's features could be sharper, for example. So I'm going to get in here and sharpen up some stuff. too dramatic of a jump from where something is to where I end up getting it. A little drama's good. A lot of drama takes you right out of the realism. It's kind of like a soap opera. As soon as it gets too dramatic, it doesn't feel believable anymore. And this is one of those points where you find yourself just looking at the whole instead of every little individual part and saying, oh, this doesn't feel like it goes with this as well as it should. And like you want everything to look like it all belongs in kind of the same space. So getting stuff to mesh up is part of this process. with being a little light-handed with some of the character stuff, because there's a few that I'm kind of doing a thing where there's like light characters and dark characters. Like Grog is a dark character, but Jester is a light character, for example. Pike is a light character, and I'm kind of Scanlan is a light character. So I'm kind of choosing to go a little light-handed on some of them intentionally to represent a little of how the play style comes across. So even though they have some very dark features, I'm still making them a little lighter just because the character actually feels like a brighter person. More on the Jiminy Cricket side of things, maybe. Yeah, I was being really light-handed with Taliesin. I think it's a good thing I went back in here and sharpened up a bunch of things, because he was kind of soft. Now he's looking much sharper. He was my second face, and he is probably one of the more expressive faces of the cast. At least in the reference material I'm using. And they're all pretty expressive from time to time, but his shows it in the photo pretty clearly, and I don't know that I captured that the first time. So now I'm kind of going back and redoing some things. It's definitely helping. Yeah, I think I like that a lot better. And my wife says I need to do the same thing for Matt. He was like, "You're kind of getting a little light on that." And I think, yeah, looking at this, she might be right. There's more shadow over here on the side than I gave him. And his eyebrows to eyes are a lot darker than I went. I was pretty light-handed with people in the beginning. little there. Right. Kind of feeling like pretty good with this right now. It's got a lot of extra light coming from here, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna leave it. So way down here in the corner. And there we go. That's a lot of faces. That's a lot of faces. But that was really fun. Now what am I going to do with my time for the next, however many days? Well, I've got more drawing to do, because the next one I'm doing is Anjali Bhimani, who was on Critical Role in Dimension 20, but was also one of the what do you call it? The intelligentsia, the aunties, on Miss Marvel on Disney, which was great, and it was kind of awesome to see her there. And we'll be running into her at the show as well, and actually have a plan to get her to sign something. So that is the next one I'm going to be working on. I will give myself a day or two to scan this and get it all nice and cleaned up for printing. Thoughts on what this is called would be great. I mean, my thought is like something like You Can Certainly Try, but you know, what sounds good to everybody? I'm sure there's better titles than that in someone's mind, and I'd love to hear that too. So if you got one, let me know, and we'll get back to this drawing board with Anjali Bhimani's piece. I think I'm going to do a portrait of her, and then on the side one of her character from Miss Marvel, and then as Lady Amango, I believe was the character's name, Lady Amango from the Dimension 20 that Matt ran of the Crown of Candy prequel, The Ravening War, which she was great in. We thoroughly enjoyed that one. So if you haven't seen that, that's one to go and check out. And thanks for hanging out with us. Have a great time, and oh my gosh, this was the longest video so far. So off I go. Thanks for staying. Bye now.